And here we are. We are at the, I think, I've been on all morning. We are at the last session before the break at 4 o'clock Central European time for the global main stage activities. Um, and for this hour, this is a very meaningful and intimate presentation for me because I've been working with these three doers and innovators for the last year and a half around Powerpeers. And I want to share what Powerpeers is all about. But that's what this story is. What was the original thoughts? Um, how did it grow? Maybe some lessons of what failed along the way and trials and tribulations. So I will hand it over to you guys. Lars, Michiel, Simon, I'll stay on the screen with you, and I'll jump in a little bit in between and sort of share my part of it. So delighted to see you guys here, and let's learn about Powerpeers.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks, yeah, it's really a pleasure to be here and presenting and sharing some experience that we had establishing Powerpeers, a digital startup for the energy market. So my name is Lars Falch. Just show you around a little bit in what we have done and also what we saw in the energy market. And I can imagine that for most of you, the energy market is somehow familiar. But there's a lot of things going on there, finally. So that's also the basis of our first slides. And I think Simon is really controlling the slides. So I would like to have the next one. Thanks, Simon. And so what we see is that it is a very slow-moving industry. Although we see a lot about decentralized energy and hydro energy, etc. There's a lot of buzz, but in essence, if you look at the customer point of view of these kind of companies, it's moving quite slow if you compare it to a lot of other industries. So if you look at the some examples, universal changes that we saw last, let's say, 10, 20, 30 years. First by democratizing information when establishing, let's say, the internet, and later on the World Wide Web as a layer on top. But we also see in hospitality democratization of using unutilized assets, people offering the airbeds, but later on also the houses, and creating a marketplaces amongst each other. But we also see a tendency of provenance. So where is my clothes made, and how is it made, and where is my chocolate coming from? Is it slave free, or is it really guarded by children and child labor? We also see, of course, an immense power that is entering the market by purchasing or establishing new things. Kickstarter is just an example. We see the automotive market changing, even going towards the electricity market, where Tesla also is establishing an electricity company in the UK. So a lot of things going on already for years and decades, but not yet to the energy industry. The industry where Michiel, Simon, and I have a background in. You still see a traditional, what we call pipeline business. So production, sometimes green, sometimes gray, within one pipeline, offering it in one directional way, a one-to-many way of production towards the end market. Although the market is changing, and not that much was happening in this field. So we just took some learnings from all the other industries, and here are just an examples of what we see in the market and how we could facilitate the market and really making some changes using all the digital and customer empowerment ingredients that we saw in the other markets. So if we can go to the next one. On the left-hand side, you see the transition from fossil fuels to renewable fuels. We all know that, but renewables are often becoming more cheap, and therefore the renewables are even scaling up faster and faster. They are now one of the cheapest sources of energy already. And based on that, you also see the movement of centrally produced electricity towards decentralized, a lot of rooftop solars or farmers with wind turbines that are entering the market. And when they are entering the market, you will see all kind of mini marketplaces do exist or need of them, because they also would like to capitalize on the investment that they made on their assets, the rooftop or the small scale wind. And by doing that, they also need to have real-time and traceable electricity that they put on the grid, because sometimes electricity has a high price, sometimes a low price, and they also would like to benefit from that. And so there you see a movement of having that central marketplace, one or two in the country, towards, let's say, millions of mini marketplaces. And of course, by having all the millions of decentralized assets, you will see also multi-directional, many-to-many possibilities that do arise, instead of the pipeline one-directional. And basically that's what we saw. But if you look really very simply, in one of the co-founders, Michiel, he will be later on presenting a part. He was always showing off that his app showing, Lars, look how much electricity I am producing from my rooftop, and I could not have solar panels on my own. And one day I made a joke when he went on summer holiday, and I said, look, Michiel, you have so much electricity that you just put on the grid. I would like to get it from you, and I will take care of your plants in return. And 2 years later, Powerpeers, the retail company, did establish in offering exactly that people can really choose and offer green electricity and share it and sell it amongst each other. Next slide, please, Simon. Though we were working at a very large energy company, and that energy company, Vattenfall, really liked the idea, but was also a little bit frightened by establishing something that could compete as well. But we did organize ourselves and establishing a vehicle within or a little bit outside the corporate energy company, which was, of course, quite a big of a challenge. And there's really something else going on in operating in a corporate versus operating a startup. We try to combine best of both worlds. So being independent, somewhere remote, we started in a garage, having our own processes, etc. But there is a lot of knowledge and also customer bases in the corporate environment, where you really can tap into and learn a lot about the core elements of the energy markets. And we try to combine both. And sometimes we succeed and sometimes we didn't. And we will just show you some learnings on our journey that we have since about 5 years ago. So if we can move to the next one. And this is not for you to read, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea. We agreed upon what we say 10 commandments before we started, that you really have a strong vision and a purpose. You need partnerships. You can do it. You can't do it on your own. You really should be open for everyone to enable and enlarge your ecosystem. Not trying to benefit from the other, but really looking for mutual benefit and mutual vision. It's very much about customer centric, starting with the customer, really learning with the customer, and really get slammed in your face sometimes because you thought, well, this is a great idea, and customer or panels do not buy it. Organize yourself separately as a speedboat from the rest of the organization. Also really trying to establish a KPI for the larger organization, that X% of the future revenue should come from these kind of new solutions and business models that can even cannibalize your own business. And having more a fee-C kind of approach with the toll gates, instead of where you don't know exactly the outcome, right? So that's something that should be clear. And also if it is 80% enough to launch, just do it. And along the line, along the way, you will improve and learn, because otherwise you will never do it. If you would apply all the traditional compliances, you will never launch, or it will be very from optimal. It will be really totally nothing special, nothing new, and change. And also have a team that is really having an entrepreneurial skill set. Perhaps organize yourself around bonuses, specific KPIs, but also or let people really taking part. Sometimes it's possible, providing shares as well, or find a way that people are more entrepreneurial. And everyone should sell the company as well. If you are in finance, or if you are legal, everyone should be an ambassador and also doing the sales himself and herself, because that's really fundamental. Learn from being operational in the market with real customers that should buy and pay for you. Next slide, please.
Well, Lars, if I can be annoying and challenging, like I like to be, those were your 10 commandments before we started. How did that turn out for you? Like, I'm just curious if there was one or two that really mattered for you, or if there's one or two that you ditched along the way.
Well, what you see is that we have also a slide on that, but what you see is that creating your own purpose, your own ecosystem, your own company culture, it's essential to do it somewhere else, in another place. We also, I think we were just with 2-3 people coming from the Vattenfall organization, and the remaining group of people all outside, all kind of industries. Like later on you, Chris, when you joined. Totally different industry, share the same vision.
Yeah.
So
yeah, interesting. Yeah, so because I think also maybe we'll touch on it later, but the when we were talking about the purpose, even debating, arguing sometimes the definition of democratizing, and what does that mean? So sorry for the interruption, but yeah, keep going. It's I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this to hear history. Yeah.
Having, let's say, being active in the market with real customers, but also have an organization with sometimes new people, new stories, new insights, is really helping. I think innovation, doing new stuff, is really combining all the new insights in something combined. Is adding new value, and that is a constant loop. So you should be open for that. Sometimes difficult because you are on a sort of path, or you have something in mind, and it is always, of course, let's say, the team that should decide what next steps should be made. But I think you should be open always for criticism, new insights, etc. It's tough sometimes, but I think it's very worthwhile doing that.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Michiel? Oh.
Wait, what is the squeak we're hearing?
Mickey Mouse?
I thought that was Lars squeaking, but
well,
let's try it. Or is it
Michiel is trying to find his right mic, or I don't know what kind
of. Is this better?
This is better. Yeah.
This is better. Sorry, guys. Technical issues. Sometimes you learn along the way. Being Mickey Mouse is more innovative.
Hey,
thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris, for facilitating, and thanks everyone for joining and listening in. Now my Mickey Mouse voice has turned to something more serious. One thing I would like to add to the discussion you had was being such a diverse group of people, and also going through the challenge you were going through. I think one of the main things that was really beneficial and good to have is like a shared set of values, apart from the vision and the purpose where we went. So really knowing what this company is about, and how we were going to tackle this. Also the obstacles that we actually met along the way. that gave people this common shared ground to work from. And I think if you talk about team and some prerequisites for success, you can talk about ownership, you can talk about getting rewarded financially, but having a shared set of values is massively rewarding and enabling to work from. I think that's a very important thing to learn from as well. And if you're doing this from a corporate point of view on arm's length in a separate entity, the pitfall, of course, is to adopt a lot of things which are typical values within the corporate. Not saying that they are bad, but I think you really have to start with a clean sheet and to build up the company again, also in that perspective. So knowing what Lars has discussed, basically, what was the purpose that we were set out to do? We were all about democratizing, as Christian said, or educating the crowd, or whatever synonym you can use. I think the main purpose that we have is we firmly believe in that people, if you let people participate in any way they can on their own level, basically by empowering them, then actually you have a key to really speeding up the green energy transition and really doing it from a bottom-up direction. Because if you will leave it to the few corporates per market that are around in every geographic market at this point in time, the speed of change will probably not be as fast than if you have it from both directions. So the way we've done it is actually use technology to provide a engaging layer that actually makes it for people enjoyable to participate in generating, sharing, selling, but also using energy. And this is really the power of each other. Simon, can you do a slide further, please? So, of course, as Lars said, you learn along the way, and there's lots of times that you get the door slammed in your face because you're trying to sell a concept to a potential customer, and he basically says after 5 minutes, "Sorry, I really don't understand what you're trying to convey here. It's too complicated. After all, it's just energy." So there was a lot of testing, a lot of using different methodologies to really understand the types of customer, to identify which things we were solving for which customers, and actually was the thing that we are solving big enough to actually make a viable business model out of it. We took, I think, more than a year to actually really fine-tune with market research what the proposition would be. And that really included, as Lars said, people from finance, people from all different layers of the company, even though we were very small, to really go in the evenings along the doors of people that have solar PV on their roofs, looking at being in a neighborhood, looking at houses. Hey, you have solar PV, let's ring the bell and try to pitch this concept and see if it works. And you get amazing reactions from a lot of people. You also get amazing disappointments from a lot of people. So actually it's a very steep learning curve, but very valuable. Simon, can you move on, please? So what was the result? The result was that when we started out, we really tried to really break through all the convention of the standard energy industry in the Netherlands. And of course, the way energy has been organized is all around stability. Large energy networks, like the national grids and the national power companies, they thrive the best by providing stability. After all, that is what makes sure that your refrigerator works in the evening, or actually that economy can run. So having a proposition that actually breaks through all kinds of conventions that have been agreed in those kinds of ecosystems is probably not the way to go. We found out very quickly. So the way we went about is fine-tuning a proposition in the way we had something that we actually could apply to all the current regulations and conventions which were in the market present in the Netherlands in 2016. So that resulted in an energy retail company, basically us selling power contracts to consumers as a large testing bed for Powerpeers as a concept. And of course, this was not a testing bed that was only in there for losing money. No, it should have a business case that is sustainable on its own. So that is one part of the company. And the other company, which is a separate legal entity we raised, was what we call the SaaS platform, so software as a service, where we fine-tuned the concept and all the learnings that we had in the Netherlands and offered this as a service to any energy company in the world that actually wants to use this to engage with their customers and actually believes in this transition of the energy company by including as many customers as possible. So was it a success? Yes. The energy company in the Netherlands was quite successful, quite fast. If you are able to do things in a very different way, you will probably find, if you look back, that you've tended to do things because they were always done like this. And now, if you can do it in a different way, and you can reinvent some things, then you basically say, well, why do we need this? And nobody can give you the answer. Well, if you don't need it, why don't you use it? So we launched in the Netherlands in 2016. In 2019, we reached 60,000 customer contracts, which is quite fast in growth rates. What you see is that the platform, because it was all about social engagement and how to interact people with each other, to connect people with each other, is that the typical KPIs that are used in the retail energy market, like retention and acquisition rates, were very favorable in this concept, because people were inviting each other to share each other's energy. And if you do that, then people tend to stick around much longer than being basically attracted by a somewhat more anonymous energy company, because they basically are inclined to switch every year or every 2 years. And here you're actually invited by a friend or a relative, and that makes people much more sticky. And if you look at the typical Net Promoter Score, NPS, in the Dutch market, which is a KPI for customer satisfaction, typical in the Dutch industry, that's around 0, and we scored around 20 for 2 or 3 years in a row. So in terms of success, quite successful. And of course, lots of coverage in the international media. And that's also a thing that we found out, is that if you engage with regulators or with the typical market actors, it's much more difficult to talk about change on a theoretic basis. So if you basically discuss your concept, but you don't have it actually working in the market today, than if you would have it. Because the moment we had this in the market, and the moment people saw that actually there was success or there was interaction going on, the approach towards us became completely different. We were invited to share our vision on how we saw the energy market changing, not only in the Netherlands, but actually in the EU and in separate countries as well. So that is, for me, was personally a big learning. If you are a doer, also related to the previous speaker, being out there really raises a lot of opportunities. So if we move on to the SaaS company, basically what we built was an IT company providing a cloud-based platform where everybody could tap into. We made it quite simple. We had a few modules which any retailer can use to engage with their end users. Lars mentioned in the beginning something about provenance in the food industry, or provenance in the clothing industry. Basically, what we started with is offering provenance in where your energy comes from. Lots of people are wondering more and more why it is that they basically signed up for a green solar power contract with their energy supplier, but they start to wonder where the energy comes from on the dark December day. You know, it's just not very logical that there's solar power around. And this whole industry in energy, of course, has really been built about the trading of green certificates. So you can buy fossil power, and you basically buy a green certificate for it, and now you can call it green. This is something that is more and more challenged by end users. And this is the first module we offered, that people have real-time insight in where the energy that they are using has been generated at that point in time that they have used it. So if you move on from left to right, the middle model that we offered was actually, if people have that insight, then people will probably also be more inclined to select specific sources where they would want to have energy from. And some people do that on a daily basis, and some people do it on a yearly basis. That's all fine. But you can do it on all your preferences. You can say, I have a tendency to choose solar energy because I like it more than hydro or more than wind energy. Well, that's fine. But you can even make it more personal, saying, I don't only want solar energy. No, I want solar energy from a specific solar field, or maybe solar energy from the solar panels on Simon's roof. So everyone that actually produces energy is a selectable source on the platform. That's basically what we have built. And if you move on even further to the right, and you take into account that the prices on the energy market fluctuate on a daily basis, actually on an hourly basis, then you could really start looking into marketplace concepts where people really, based on local scarcity, can offer energy to a certain price. And at the end, our end goal was not to be the platform actually that determines where the energy should come from, or where the energy should be stored, or what energy your car has been charged with. But we were the central hub in which people actually make their choices and connect all the actors towards each other. So back to over to you, Simon.
Okay, so thank you, Michiel. Thank you, Chris, for organizing. It's great to be here. So this was quite a journey, and we wanted to share some of the things we learned along the way. I'm also very interested if anybody has questions to put in the chat and so on. Happy to address those later on. As Lars was describing, Powerpeers was a startup corporate venture and faced some particular challenges. And one of the difficulties is rather cultural. If you have a large company which makes its money by running an efficient and well-designed process, then anything new and different feels as disruptive, and rather feels as a threat to the well-oiled machine which that company runs. And so we found ourselves needing to create a space for ourselves where we could do something innovative, new, with different kinds of processes, different habits of how we work, able to fail fast and try different things. So that's the challenge. What we clearly have as a learning is that these operating models are not compatible. So ultimately, you need to be able to coexist existing established business models with new business models. I personally know of no example where this happens very well. I know some examples that happen better or worse. I'm very curious to know if anybody listening has some good examples where this has taken place. Specifically, what we saw happening in smaller and bigger ways is that people in the large corporate are keen to look at new ideas. They totally understand the potential there. They can see that what is needed is a rather lighter governance than they normally would have in their corporate way of doing things. And so they make a bit of space. But at some point, the habits of the large corporate tend to come back. And you will typically see this in, for example, the kind of KPIs which a corporate manager is looking for, which are typically KPIs to do with operational efficiency and margin and all the typical metrics that you'd see in a corporate, but not the kind of metrics that you might want in a startup, where you're rather looking to experiment widely and see which propositions get the best traction. And the danger, of course, is that certain initiatives are seen to have failed, because in a corporate, failure seems to be a problem, whereas in the startup world, failure is part of life. So it's very important to create an environment around yourself where failure is seen as okay and part of the normal development of things. So this is the real cultural issue to do with being a startup within a corporate. There are, of course, different characteristics. I won't go through all these in detail, but you have typically on the left-hand side a managerial organization. And on the right-hand side, you have a more entrepreneurial organization, which is probably looking to change things and maybe break things on the way, rather than keep things going and keep the machine protected. This is the challenge. So what did we find? One of the key things we found is that simplifying your life gets you a long way. And this is also where we got a lot of help from Chris on easy ways to look at our business and focus on the things that really need to be focused on. And we used this. If you want to jump in, please do, Chris.
Actually, I'd like you to explain it, and then I'll jump in, if you're okay with that. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, so we use this simplicity scan. This is a great way of being able to step back from the daily operations of things, and typically you're overstretched and overloaded and trying to run to the urgent stuff, but it's always good to take a step back and take in the big picture again, and remind yourself what your purpose is, and from there, what are the important aspects. And I love this, these four categories of focus, growth, delivery, and momentum. The focus should remain fresh. Sometimes you have to change, but the point is you should know what it is. Being clear what items you need to pay attention to for your growth, and how you're actually going to deliver that growth. So this is a very practical exercise going through this. It doesn't take very long, but it's a very fruitful discussion. What I really like about this particular one is the momentum category, about mindset, about immediate actions, about risks. This is a piece which is often missing in these kinds of strategic exercises, and which we found very valuable to really focus down onto what is important right now, what do we need to look out for in the medium long term, and how do we safeguard that.
Nice. Michiel and Lars, I'm curious what your experience was using the simplicity scan.
Yeah, two elements to add to what Simon mentioned, and one of the elements is that I like the iterative process as well, and having also the viewpoints of your colleagues and others, and having the discussion. So that is of course very worthwhile. And what I also wanted to say is that also startups becoming scale-ups and having their way to operationalize their business and could have the tendency as well in becoming a corporate environment as well, right? Because every corporate environment also was, let's say, a sort of startup in the beginning. And one of the learnings is you really have to, once in a while, I don't know, have every half year or year and a half, having really time to seriously work on your own organization and stay fresh, stay open, stay agile. It's fine if you really have to change some things, but really be open for everything what's happening around you, and not as an autopilot trying to optimize the existing constantly. So I think that's the second part I wanted to add.
Yeah, for me, is yes, you can refresh this every now and then, but as the responsible for the platform functionality, for me, it was a guideline as well to base the decisions on priorities of development on, what helps growth at this point in time the most. What are the key things we need to do for growth? Is that researching new technology, or is that something that we do have today after tomorrow? So for me, it's also something that you can use on a daily basis in your everyday decisions. Saying, no, this is what we agreed on growth. This is what we agreed on how to deliver growth. So with that in our back of our minds, these are the priorities I set on product development, or in market research, or in other decisions you can prioritize on a daily basis.
Cool.
So how's your feeling?
Well, I think the scan sucks. It's no, the simplicity scan is something that I have developed with you guys and many other people over the last couple of years, in a way to keep me out of trouble. And we have gotten in trouble in Powerpeers, and so I'd like to jump into some of those things as well. Having been involved in multiple initiatives, and sometimes I get a little geeky and I want to build stuff before they come, and so that's why I'm such a fan of the principles, the 10 principles that you guys had when you started, and also like Francisco's work, lean startup, and basically really validate before you start to build. As I've been observing large and small organizations and suffering and having joyful experiences, this sort of architecture, if you will, sort of came out over time, and it's gone through many iterations. And what we did, which I thought was brilliant, is multiple times, not only us as a management team, but other people as well, in particular sales, filled these out independently. And then we came back together and had sometimes arguments, sometimes debates, but some dialogue about where are we not on the same page, and then tried to force ourselves into, like, okay, if we're not on the same page, is that because somebody is just wrong or not aware, or is it because someone, maybe we're making different assumptions, or maybe we have to validate something? And so what I really appreciated is that everyone leaned into that. So, I think we probably did it 4 or 5 times. And you've done the business model canvas, and you did the value proposition canvas, and you did the EXO canvas. And it wasn't for the sake of doing the paperwork, but what I really liked was the fact that these were conversation starters. These were sources of dialogue. In hindsight, what I wish I would have done more, which we would have done more, and this is a new evolution, is the left side, the purpose, customer, product, experience, and mindset. What I recommend is for startups to really focus on that column, and then actually make a really light pitch deck and go to customers and see if they will actually buy the solution. And that's, I think, is one mistake we made, is a lot of engagement with a lot of customers over years who expressed a lot of interest, and then we built to that, and the product market fit wasn't perfect, once we delivered. And so now there's more iteration and there's more refactoring to do. Okay, that's fine. That's sort of par for the course. But for me, next time, when we, go to market with something like this, not only would I want to go out to the customers and validate, but then actually ask them to, put ink on paper. The growth part is, and that's probably more where Powerpeers is probably for scale ups, because once you have your purpose, customer, product, once you know what you're focusing on, then the question is, okay, how do you turn on that machine of growth? And then larger organizations, of course, look at delivery. And it's been fascinating for me that when I started using this myself to keep me out of trouble, because something I promised myself was before I get into any initiative meaningfully, you know, like a participant, I will make sure that the players have completed this. And that's why, you know, like we did this and we had that debate. Not that we all have to agree on it, but that we have to know where we are on the topics. As I've been exposing this to more and more different organizations, it seems like the people who are really either solopreneurs or starting with a concept seem to focus on the left, and then the larger organizations seem to be more fixated on the right. But of course, you have to look at all of them across one. So for me, this has been super helpful. So I think that's good for me. I'm just really enjoying this because I joined Powerpeers after you guys have been busy for like 3 years or so, and the mission was to take an existing successful new entrant in a market that has been disrupting and had a top NPS, and try to and we achieved that, and, you know, basically cut the organization in two, which is not an easy thing, and refactor the platform so it was available as a white label SaaS solution. And essentially we did that in 9 months. And I think that's really a testament to the culture and the people that you had around you and you guys as leaders. So let's get back to the presentation, because I'm also just enjoying this whole the whole discussion.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I have a couple of more about learnings, specifically on growth. A few more generic learnings here, but to share a couple of stories. When we talk about planning, there's also some pivoting to do, and it's unlikely that you're going to get the plan that you made 100% right first time. That just wouldn't be real. For example, on our sales planning for the platform company, we at a couple of points revisited what the characteristics of our best target customers should be, and we subtly shifted our attention to a different class of customer, without abandoning specifically any classes, but it's more a shift of emphasis. We did that based on evidence from discussion, so it wasn't based on any hunch or anything else, but go in a direction, actually have those conversations, find out what you need to find out, and if you then think it's the right thing to do to change direction, then change direction. And that, of course, leads to the importance of monitoring what you're doing, actually getting results, knowing what it is you want to measure. Sometimes you can't measure end results because end results take a long time to achieve. So in our Powerpeers case, we're dealing with very long sales cycles. That means that you can't wait until you have the first 1, 2, 3, 10 sales to know how your sales activity is doing. You have to measure intermediate things along the way. We found that partnerships are a great way to enhance the business on the sales side, but also on other aspects. But of course, your partners need to be incentivized. If it's more just something that everybody likes to be connected with because it's a cool idea and they like to show off about it, but not actually take action, then it doesn't help so much. We all enjoyed having a purpose-driven brand, and I would strongly recommend anybody to attach their brand to a set of values which reflect what they believe in. And I would add that we need to, this is where the simplicity scan also comes in, it's important to focus on the things that really matter. A couple of comments about delivery as well. So in the Powerpeers case, we couldn't employ the whole team that we would have liked, but we managed to keep a core team and then build around that quite a flexible support team that we could call on. And that, I think, is a very good model for a startup where budgets are very tight. We're of course dealing in a very much data-driven part of the industry, and it's tempting to do a lot of things with that data. But we focused on this initial product of ours with behind it a very long roadmap of things we would like to add or to combine with other offerings in the market to create new products. And of course, we made use of as much generic tooling as possible and did everything extremely in an agile way. So no old-fashioned waterfall planning, but very much planning to priorities. And that's where Chris was able to give us a real boost in getting that kind of organization in place. So I'm going to skip to what we'd like to conclude with, which is what's next for our team. We, of course, want to make our learnings available. So I don't know, Michiel, Lars, if one of you wants to take this next part.
Yeah. So we've basically made Powerpeers Netherlands such a success that Vattenfall is now embracing this and is going to use this for the greater good of the Vattenfall branded customer base in the Netherlands. So basically, we are in a position to apply all the learnings that we have gained in the last 5.5 years. And actually apply it to interested parties in the energy market that actually want to make a change. And that those parties can be generic retailers that want to move into the energy sphere, or e-mobility providers, or maybe very bold incumbents that actually want to make the step towards change. I think our message is we've been the first ones that have built actually such a large energy sharing community, over 35,000 customers, 60,000 contracts. And we are the first ones actually to encounter typical things to overcome in the markets and how to not have to reinvent the wheel. So we are here really to share that knowledge and to help other people benefit from it. And of course, that really becomes apparent with having the right purpose, which is the green societal energy goals. It really needs to be in your veins if you want to make that step. Because if you have doubts half along the way, then if your purpose is not in that direction, then it doesn't work. And then we really think about not about only the company that needs to deliver such a proposition, but the ecosystem that's actually needed to support it, including all stakeholders, customers, of course, in the first place, but also making sure that we don't have to do everything ourselves. You know, there's so much knowledge and benefits if you can team up with partners to make your proposition really fly. And of course,
perhaps to add towards you, Michiel, as a sidestep, what we also saw by being active in the market, you also see that regulators, you also mentioned it earlier, Michiel, are also looking at, hey, this is interesting. How can we use this, or is it a threat or not, or can we really fulfill perhaps a bigger goal? And we also saw that the European Commission also looked at the Powerpeers platform and the expertise that we have gained, and actually did establish a new directive that will be implemented in all member states in Europe as of 2021. Where everyone should be able, every customer, residential and business, should be able to sell, offer, retrieve, trade, share electricity amongst each other, creating energy communities, etc. So that is also part of the stakeholder setup that we always see, is that regulating can also be facilitating that the market is developing, but most of the time you have to start somewhere in order to have a regulator get your attention and would like to change along. But that can be a snowball also looking forward in establishing these kind of ecosystems and changing the market.
Yep. So going back, of course, to where we started from, we see these generic global trends making huge shifts in all kinds of market sectors, but are now also slowly coming to the energy market. And we are here to help nudge and increase speed of change a bit more. So if you really want to move in that direction and look at your organization, what does it need to support this direction? You're actually heading into new territories, which can be scary, maybe even risky in your typical risk assessment frameworks. You probably need different ways of working. We firmly believe in really digital first. And if we combine all that knowledge with the trends we've seen, we think we are actually an excellent team to help your value proposition to materialize a bit faster, and also to I think that's maybe for large energy companies important part is there is a point in time that you will have to say goodbye to your old business model, and of course that is a very scary tipping point. But I think if you embrace the tipping point, you probably are in a much better situation than if you are actually waiting and let it happen.
Yeah, and perhaps to add to that, thanks, Michiel, is also that it's not only energy retail or energy companies. What I also mentioned in the beginning, you also see the automotive market going to the electricity market. Everything is going to be electrified and digitalized. You see it in white goods. You see it in movement from heating systems via gas or oil or district heating towards electricity. So you see different actors also moving towards the electricity market. Companies that are really focused on storing electricity in basements or in small hydro or batteries from cars. So the energy market is also that ecosystem is also moving forward, and we see that especially the new kind of companies entering the electricity market are really moving faster than a lot of traditional energy companies at this point in time.
Yeah. So without bothering you with all the details in this slide, I think I'm actually at this point in time much more interested in also if people have questions that we can arise that we can answer about our journey in trying to build this from a corporate point of view and the learnings that we have actually derived from that.
I have seen from Hans that he's commented more commenting about how disruption can be hard and how this is such a great example. So thank you, Hans, for that. I have a question just to lead the audience a little bit. With the changes of regulation around electricity in Europe, with the changes of digital capabilities, exponential, opportunities, what is the perfect customer to take advantage of a consumer energy sharing marketplace or energy transparency and provenance right now? Because there's other companies that are trying to do it with blockchain, which currently I think is a bit inefficient still. What is the perfect organization that can take this and truly scale it?
I'm not sure if there's one perfect customer, but you see groups of customers. I'm really intrigued about the automotive because let's say in essence, electricity is a very dull product, right? But cars are really more sexy. So if this could also help we are speaking with some car manufacturers that say we are launching full electric cars, but we really want to have guaranteed the power from our sources and from the dealers that's selling that car and making the community more tight. So these are typically kind of companies that are entering the market, which we really embrace, because it's making it more tangible and also more personal and also more alive. But it could also be a big oil company, and perhaps that sounds very strange. But if they can make that movement, then the larger change will also follow that route. Because they have the power, and they also need to switch, and then the impact could be bigger. And of course, there's a lot in between of energy retail companies that really want to embrace sustainable, but also want to embrace and are open to enable and to optimize it with their end customer base, and not seeing it as a connection point, right? A meter or a building, but are really actually people behind it. And what we really learned is that the power of people, and we saw a lot of our customers becoming an ambassador. We didn't have to do the sales; they do the sales because they like the product. It's also, they have the feeling that it's also their product. They can tweak it a little bit, creating their own environments, etc. So companies that are typically open for these kind of customers, these kind of interactions, we see and we believe are the ones that will have the largest impact for society, but also the largest impact on their own business going forward.
Great.
Maybe I could add to what Lars is saying, a couple of categories that are increasingly interested in traceable energy with proof of provenance in this way. So Lars mentioned a couple of categories, but I also see among corporate energy users, so typically any business that uses energy and has its own consumers looking at what it's doing and wanting to obviously assure its customers that it's being as environmental as possible. These kind of companies are increasingly looking for traceable energy. And this is something that's going to get much, much bigger over the next years. And another category, which is directly being facilitated by the change in the European legislation, is local energy communities, where people are able to group together to invest in a community power generation asset and maybe also a battery storage with it. And what is really important in those cases is to be able to show that you're allocating the power that is generated within the community first in an optimal way before you need to import any energy. And there's no comparable systems today that can do that. So these are a couple of areas which are up and coming. I'm sure there will be many more because this is a fast evolving area.
Michiel, before you go, it's almost 4 o'clock. We might get thrown out of here at 4 o'clock. I honestly don't know, but because the global main stage is starting at 4. Assuming we don't, let's just keep going. But if we do get dropped off in the next 30 seconds, thank you so much, everyone. But on the hope that we don't, Michiel, I'm curious what your answer is, and then we can wrap up in the next couple minutes.
Well, apart from the typical customers or segments that Lars and Simon raised, I think we will probably come at a point in time that not only people are identifiable, but even devices are becoming identifiable entities that actually come with certain energy provenance guaranteed. So you buy a washing machine with green energy during its lifespan. Technology to have that in your washing machine is $2. The chip that can actually communicate with the internet in the washing machine is already there today. So if you can really promise as a retailer that the device your consumer buys is actually foreseen with green energy, and you can prove it all the way through its lifespan, well, I think you probably have a very unique proposition that actually builds trust, but also, makes verification almost at some point in time, if there's enough volume, makes verification self-evident.
Yeah.
So
Great.
so we still are a market that actually measures on a household level, but in some markets the majority of energy is not consumed within the household, but by the electric car already. So if you draw that a bit further, that line towards the future, then you could see people actually setting their preferences for the different devices. And I don't believe people will log in on day-to-day basis, but they set their preferences, and the moments in time that they actually want to check if it's correct, then you have to provide the trust, but also the insight in a very easy, viewable, transferable way. And that's actually all what we try to do.
Nice. I think I would add a different perspective to that. That the people who seem to be embracing these evolutions is actually a different mindset of person. Meaning it seems to be the leaders who are, and I think innovative is too cheap of a term here, but it's people who are aware of the trends as opposed to just the quarterly sales. They're aware of the change of consumer preferences, the need for consumers to trust more, and the slow evolution away from price only to green, to trust, confidence, and also a bit more digital savvy. So people are realizing that when you digitize, that kilowatt hour, if you will, when you digitize that, you open up new opportunities, new ways of engaging, new business models, and I think that's basically what we've been talking about all day here. Going from, Craig's Awake session about the exponential opportunities, and we talked about exponential leadership, and Michiel was on that one. No, you weren't. You should have been. Sorry, I spoke for you. You were there in spirit. And then Paul talking about basically new fundamental economic models, and Francisco talking about how to go from zero to hero, and essentially what Francisco has sort of codified is really what you guys have already done, drawing on some of those same books and inspiration, but you guys have sort of followed your intuition and followed your passion, and so I love it that we're ending with this story, this meaningful story in the market, and I really appreciate, with everything else that's going on, you guys took the time to come and share the story together. I'm very appreciative. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for giving me the platform, facilitating.
Yeah, thanks.
So it's
really a pleasure.
And now I see I've been online for 7 hours. I'm gonna go lay down for a bit, and then we'll see everyone back on this stage at 6 o'clock, where we're going to hear from the Dutch National Police, actually, and how they are using VR to help train them to prevent ethnic bias in their actions, which is super relevant. Really looking forward to that. Gentlemen, I appreciate it. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Very comfortable.
Bye-bye.
Bye.